big blue button. I always forget about that one. Okay, so we're still not live, but it's loading. It's loading, and we are streaming. I'm going to production, and I can't see anything. That's funny. How so? Stream settings. Copy this again. Give me a second. Let's give it 10 seconds. No, it's not working. Why? Same happened with Beltran, but okay. I think I'm going to copy the stream key again and everything. I will be back in a minute. Live stream, YouTube, stream key, boom. Stream URL, boom. Okay. And the same for LinkedIn. Let's try. Stream the URL. There you go. And stream key. There you go. Settings saved. So let's go live. Why can I go? Okay, Kubernetes loves SPDX. Go live now. I don't know what's going on here. Let me double check if we're live. Why are we not live? What am I doing? I'm doing something wrong. We are live. Can you check, by the way? Can you go to SPDX's YouTube channel, which is youtube.com / @SPDX_SBOM. We should be live, but I can't see it in incognito. So maybe someone's,
I don't think I see it.
No, there's a tab for live.
And there's nothing on it.
Yeah, and yet this says that we are live. My panel says that we are live. Okay, let me try something else. SPDX, yeah, you're right. There's nothing here. Okay. Let me actually tweet about it. Technical difficulties. Double F. All right. So what this is live stream. Let's try. Let's try the backup server. All right. Let's see now. Because this should work immediately as soon as this is recording. It should be streaming. I'm going to try this again. US Central, get URL. Okay. Stream URL. Stream LinkedIn. Ready to go. And stream key. Okay. So this should be done. And why doesn't it let me go live? Oh my God, what's going on? Why? I don't understand. Everything is in its place. Everything. Ah, what am I doing? Why? This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. Oh.
I was streaming to the right channel.
We are live. I mean, that's all I can say. And yet, we are not live. So, I'm going to end the stream. Not yet. Okay, let's not. Why? I don't get it. Everything is perfect. I did exactly the same. I don't get it, honestly. Oh, okay. I think I know. I think I know. And this might be a very stupid mistake if this is it. On visibility, it's probably this. Oh my God. Was it the visibility? No. No, it's not the visibility, which I just changed. I can see the stream going on. It's so funny. I can't believe it.
I think I see it.
Oh, is it got? Is it? No, we're not live. At least not. Oh, there you go. Yes, now we're live. My goodness, yes. But we should be live on LinkedIn too. How funny! And there you go. Now we're live. Live, Adolfo. And I can hear myself in both streams. Yeah. So what? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I don't get it. It's so anyway. Let's give people a bit of a chance. I'm gonna tweet about it, and we are live. I'm gonna share the link, and we should be good to go. So okay, so you're joining from Chile, Mexico City, but you say that it's not usually that cold, right? That it's a bit warmer.
No, it is.
In July or not?
Usually our summers are cloudy and rainy. And
what about temperature-wise?
I don't know, around. So right now we're at around 15, 20 degrees, and usually it goes up to 25 or so.
Very mild. I like it. I should move there. Because I'm in London and it's
April
like
is the hot month.
Oh, is it? Like over 30, I guess is 100 something, 104, I think, something Fahrenheit. Wow. Okay, April. Oh, funny. And what about winters? Is it really cold over there or not so cold?
It goes. I mean, the coldest, like at 5 in the morning, is 4 or so. So it's
okay. Wow. Yeah. Well, I see. Nice.
Pretty much the same all year long.
Okay. Adolfo, welcome to the SPDX YouTube channel. Thank you for your patience. We are 13 minutes late. I mean, we joined a couple of minutes ago. YouTube just refused, and LinkedIn. So I was doing something wrong. I just need to figure out what I was doing wrong. Hopefully, the fan in the background is not bothering Adolfo. I asked him, but anyone out there, let me know in the comments. I'll be tracking YouTube comments anytime. Feel free, anyone, to write, to add any questions there, any comments. I'll read them out loud. Keep it polite and respectful and interesting if you can. And yeah, we've got Adolfo here, Garcia Veytia, a Mexican developer. So tell us briefly. So you're a software engineer. Where did you get first? Did you get become familiar with SBOMs in general first, or with Kubernetes first?
No, I was working on when I got to know SPDX. I was working on the Kubernetes release tooling, not just around SBOMs. In fact, until we started working on the SBOM for Kubernetes, supply chain was a real thing for me. I didn't know anything.
Okay.
I mean, we were trying to, of course, be careful and mindful on how we release and how we store the artifacts produced by the Kubernetes project, of course, but it wasn't that well known to us as the trope that it is today. And that's why I became aware of SPDX.
How did you become aware of Kubernetes? Because you please tell us also where you work, where you collaborate in the Kubernetes project, and where you work professionally.
Well, at that time, I was working in my own company. It's a company called U Servers in Mexico, and we used to do enterprise email, and then we also were doing some consulting for GCP, Google Cloud, and then I started getting involved with Kubernetes because, well, the cloud, right? And I started going to KubeCon just on my own time because I kept seeing that the community was really friendly and always ready for new members, and always, like all open source projects, needed some help. So I tried for a few months to find my place in there, and then I started working with who are now my very good friends of SIG Release. And then I started, putting in the hours, putting in the work, and then I don't know. I'm very tight and involved with the project.
Yeah, you're definitely the tech lead over there, right? So what is the charter? What is the goal? What are the goals of SIG Release? And if you can explain what SIG stands for anyone not familiar with the very elaborate and intricate and solid governance of the Kubernetes project.
Right. So SIG stands for Special Interest Group, and the Kubernetes project is so large. I think during the last elections, around 1,000 people were able to vote, eligible.
Wow.
So
it might need its own state.
Yeah.
Kubernetes might be a federal district now, but now it might need their own assembly.
Yeah, we need to purchase one of those island nations for the good of humanity. So I mean, in a project so large, not everybody can know everything. So people specialize in different areas of the project. There's a SIG security, there is a SIG API machinery, there's a SIG K8s infra who run all of the infrastructure for the project. I think there are around, if I remember correctly, like 20 or so SIGs. I may be wrong.
Wow. Wow.
And SIG Release is the group of people who write and maintain all of the tooling that builds and releases Kubernetes every quarter, and even more frequently if you take into account the pre-releases. And we are also also have some overlapping with K8s infra because we also are heavy users of the infrastructure, and the SIG has two main areas of focus. One is the release team.
Yeah.
And this is a wonderful rotating group of people who come in every quarter. And the release team is composed of around 30 or so people who have different roles in the release team. And and they ship every new Kubernetes minor release. So right now we're in the release cycle for Kubernetes 128,
128, yeah.
and led by Grace Nguyen. And the other area of SIG release is the release engineering group. And this is where the release managers for Kubernetes, like myself, um, work every month to ensure that the tooling is working, fix any problems, assist the release team by cutting their alphas, their betas, and so on.
Is there what's can you explain briefly what the tooling is for the release? What's the build process? How does that look in terms of tooling, the tool chain there?
Yeah, we have so I think everything uh, up until very recently is custom written for the Kubernetes project.
Oh, wow.
And we have a two-part release process. First, we build all of the artifacts, all of the container images, binaries, now the SBOM, the SATs attestations.
Because Go is a compiled language and it's all Go.
Exactly, everything is Go.
Okay. Okay.
So the first stage is we build everything and we push all the artifacts to staging registries. We push the binaries to buckets. We are now collaborating with SUSE on using their
Nice.
OBS service, and they build the system packages for us. This is a brand new recent development led by Marko Mudrinic, who is one of the release managers. And so we build everything, and then after that we run several tests on those artifacts, like do the images look right, are the binaries are at the right architecture, and a lot of those processes. And then if
Mm-hmm.
everything is okay, the release managers sign off on the release, and then we move on to the release stage. And the release stage means first we send the images out to the production registries, we sign them, and then we also sign the binaries and publish everything, and send out the usual announcements.
Okay.
It's a process that runs around, I don't know, it takes, if everything runs smoothly, it takes around 2 hours, 3 hours or so.
Wow, that's quite fun. Like all of it? You mean the staging, generation of all images, system binary and binaries, and then from approval of those and signing to production 3-4 hours?
Exactly.
Wow. Wow, my goodness. That's freaking fast.
Yeah,
Okay.
all of the tooling is most of the release process is run by a binary that we have been writing over the past years called CREL, the Kubernetes Release Engineering Toolkit. I think it's what it means, and that takes care of everything. It launches the jobs on Google Cloud, generates the
Okay.
SBOM now, all of that.
So this is the release. You're talking about the state of the art release of 128. It has been like this for a while, but I guess go back to your first involved. Take us back to the when you first remember conversations about SBOMs in general. Like why, in what context did it become relevant to say, hey, you know what? And maybe not only about SBOMs. It's like again, what kind of conversation sprung up the need for you eventually and others implementing SBOMs in Kubernetes, but the stage before doing so, like what was the context?
So before we have this CREL tool, uh, most of the release process in Kubernetes was pure bash, and it was
As any single project in the world, right? Scripted
yeah,
to
I mean,
the
yes, but if you had seen this bash script, I mean, I think it was originally started by Joe Bida back on Kubernetes day one, and it grew to I honestly never knew that you could do such things with bash. It was like a multi-thousand line script all written in bash. um, but I mean, it worked, but it made maintaining, testing, and
of
basically
course.
writing new features very difficult. So around 2018, I think we started rewriting Anago in what is now CREL, And it took us over what, a year and a half or so. And then when we had it ready, we started thinking, okay, what's next? We now have this new shiny new, very well written, and this is not talking about my job, but
Yeah.
Sasha Gruner was mainly the driver for that, who is now the SIG release SIG chair. Then when we had this new tool, we started like thinking, okay, what's next? And the first thing, we started improving testing around all of the artifacts and so on. And then one day, Stephen Augustus, who is the other chair of SIG release, I remember just casually dropping in a meeting the question, "Do you know what a bomb is?" A bomb? No, a bomb. BOM, bill of materials. Um, no, no idea. Okay, so I've been hearing around that this is going to be a thing, a requirement, so we should start looking into it. And I started diving into what a bomb, now usually called an SBOM, was, and that's where the journey started.
Well, so it was just that Stephen and I guess the crowd got a bit sort of like wind of some cool thing going on, although it's a pretty old technology, right? So I mean, specifically SPDX, but in general, the concept of SBOMs or bill of materials is a very old one. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised because there's a huge wave of interest, and some projects like Kubernetes have adopted it. In this case, SPDX. But yeah, I think that the majority of people are in that phase that you just described. Like someone is talking about SBOMs and is like, I didn't know what a bomb is and how interesting. So how did you get interested in SPDX? Like, how was your research phase in that sense? What brought you to SPDX? I mean, you just mentioned it, like someone raised the issue of SBOMs, but yeah, how did you find your way to SPDX in particular?
So I guess my first link to SPDX was at that time one of the chairs for SIG release was Tim Pepper, who's now at VMware, uh, and he's now one of the chairs of the Kubernetes steering committee. And I was trying to look for documentation on what a bomb was, and I didn't find the right direction. And then when discussing this in one of our meetings, Tim said, "You know what? You should look at the work of Nisha Kumar." And I think I stumbled on one of her talks, and then that led me to Turn, the project that she created to create SBOMs, and I was just hooked. And
What was she
after,
working on at that time? Because I know what she's working on now, and we will talk about it later. But what was she working on at that point?
she was at VMware at the time.
Yeah, but in relation to SPDX or with
Ah,
SBOMs, what was she
she was
doing?
working on Turn the project,
Okay,
the SBOM
okay.
terminator. And we looked at Turn briefly, but it was all Python, so we couldn't easily integrate it into our release process. And but then, yeah, that's how I got to know SPDX and Nisha and all of the wonderful people in the project.
So then, how was the decision made that SPDX should be the, at least initially and for now, the SBOM communication format that should be structuring the SBOMs of each Kubernetes release? What did
Um,
you see that it was valuable for you and the rest, of course?
so we started building and testing with SPDX right away. Um, so one of the things that was very helpful was the tooling to verify the syntax and the conformance of our documents to the spec. Um, it was it's a very large SBOM, right? Because it's a very big
I
project.
presume
So
so. You're going to show us later. I mean, not all of it, but it's. I'm guessing it's big. Yes.
yeah, we can go over it. So I don't know. The community was very responsive. Um, I remember just sending questions to Gary Neal, who was the author of the tooling. and I don't know, it was just a friendly environment. And some of the other formats approach us and say, well, you should also consider, and we were open, but it's an open source project, so we had already invested in SPDX. It was working very well, so we were open to, well, send us some PRs, and gladly we'll take them. No one really, the interest in wasn't there, so we just stick with Kubernetes, and then we wrote a, well, a substantial large project around SPDX. So this is where we are.
Yeah. Okay. Was it a requirement to contribute the Go tooling that you created and others, so that you could incorporate SPDX, that you can create? What was it a requirement? Did you need to write that tool for that to happen?
Yeah, I mean, in during those years, the Go tooling wasn't really there, so we just wrote.
I just discovered, by the way, that Mitchell or Michelle, I never remember how to pronounce his name, the founder of HashiCorp, Mitchell Hashimoto, he's got a Go tool to generate SBOM, SPDX SBOMs. You could have grabbed that one. Yeah, an open source. I tweeted about him, and he said, yeah, I needed it. I created it and left it there. Maybe he did so after you guys did. I'm just joking. But yeah, there's plenty of those. But yeah, I presume that back in those days, the Go tooling for this specific task was not there yet, right?
Yeah, I didn't know, but I mean, let 1,000 flowers bloom, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So how did that go then? How, once you made the decision that the SBOMs of Kubernetes, of each release at least, were going to be SPDX, was it painful to introduce that? How did the release change in any way? Was it just a matter of introducing a new step in the build process? How did that work? How did you sort of like find your way into a seamless integration, or as seamless as possible?
Yeah, I mean, it was, so the big challenges with that tool were two main areas of challenge. The first one was writing the document generator who could output the SPDX markup, and that was the first one. But we also had to write the analyzers that could look at the project, extract dependencies, understand the container images, how they were built, and analyze the binaries. And so, because you have to capture all of that information inside of the SBOM.
Of course.
And all of those libraries were things that we were going to use elsewhere in the release process anyway. So we just
okay. For what purpose? Like, what do those libraries can do other than inspect dependency graphs, binaries, images, and provide that information to an SBOM? What are can they do security, or what is the purpose of those other purposes for those in the libraries?
So, for example, the binary analyzer was based on the same code that checks that the binaries have the right architecture, for example.
Okay.
The way our tooling reads container images and gives you information about their layers and the contents inside of them is also useful for verifying. We haven't used them for that so far, but we try to always, when creating new projects like this one, we always try to create libraries that people can, libraries and tools that people can reuse for other things. So SIG release has 2 repositories of just stuff related to libraries related to release, and in that library we have everything from code to interacting with Git, with GitHub, container images, signing, that anybody can use in their own projects.
Nice. So what was the first release that went out with an SBOM in it?
If I remember correctly, it was 1.23, I believe.
Okay, so 5 releases ago.
Right.
That was years ago, therefore, right?
Yeah, years ago. I think so from all of this effort, we wrote an SBOM generator called BOM, and I presented about that project in KubeCon in LA, which was 2020, I think. So
The year
it was very
that,
mature by
yeah,
then.
that's the year of the pandemic. Are you sure? Maybe 2019? Oh, the year of the pandemic.
It
Okay,
was it was it
2020.
was the first one after the pandemic. It was like a very strange KubeCon because we had
Yeah,
a
yeah, I
huge venue
remember.
and no one was there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, I remember. No one from Europe was allowed. Actually, I think
Right.
Europeans, or at least the people living in Europe, were not. We were not allowed in the US, I believe. So we
Exactly.
had to do remote. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, yeah. That's a long time ago. 3 years ago. Wow, almost 3 years ago.
Pandemic
Okay.
years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I think we've covered everything. Would you like to show us what a high level view of what the Kubernetes SBOM looks like? Like, what are the most interesting bits of it? Um, what people look up the first, and what are, I don't know, curiosities about it that you find relevant?
Yeah, for sure. Let me try to share my screen if Chrome
Let's hope that
explodes.
we had, as we were talking before the stream, that in the first interview of this series of SPDX ecosystem, I left my guest Beltran from VMware application catalog left alone in the stream because everything crashed my internet, and I've got two ISPs, two, not one, two, and both of them went down.
Oh wow.
So when you go live, everything can happen. Hopefully, your Chrome stays stable, and
Okay, it seems to
it
be
should be
working.
okay. I can see you still. Okay, yeah, I
Can
can
you
see
see?
your screen being shared. Yeah, gradually, I can
Okay.
see your console. Yeah, terminal.
All right. So the first thing to know about the Kubernetes SBOM is that the we when we started writing the Kubernetes SBOM, the most, I would say, prevalent format encoding of SPDX was the tag value format. So this SBOM is written in that format. And
Okay.
for people who haven't yet looked at how SPDX in tag value format, this is it. Uh, so
What
main
other
things,
formats does this? Do you support any other formats today?
yeah. I mean, the tool can generate the SBOM in not only tag value but also in JSON. So everything seems to be moving towards JSON. It's not yet the default in the tool because we don't want to break people, but you can generate it.
What do
Um,
you find useful about tag value, and what are your criticisms about tag? What do you like and not like about tag value formats?
I don't know. People seem to have a hard time parsing it. I mean, this tool can also read SBOMs. I'll show you in a minute. And for some reason, folks seem to complain a lot. I guess it's just that people are so used to JSON today that just comes naturally.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you're usually using a library that parses the format, so you don't have to take like you don't have to care about how it gets parsed. So me writing the parser for the file, it was like, well, it's not really difficult.
Okay.
So it goes in blocks like this. Every time you find a new file or a new package, it adds the data here. So this is where one of the information of the binaries, for example, this is kubectl
Mm-hmm.
for Linux ARM64,
I'm
and we
64.
capture the shards of the file, the license, and things like that. But I mean, if you see it like this, it's just a bunch of things that it's hard to really understand.
Correct.
These are
Yes.
the image tarbles that we release.
For
But
Windows.
in order to understand this a little bit better, we wrote the tool BOM. So BOM can take an SBOM like this one. So man you the Kubernetes SBOM. This is the 123.1 release. It's just one I had lying around here. This is from December 2021. Oh, maybe I should have gotten a new one. This is the release SBOM. It's 196K, and we produce two SBOMs. One is the release, which is this one. So this one will give you all of the artifacts that we put out. So the binaries, the container images, and things like that. But we also have the Kubernetes source SBOM. Let me see if I have one here. Okay, so here's a more recent one. This is the source for 127.2. And this one is a lot larger. This is 18 megabytes.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So why the difference? Okay.
Because this one has information of all the files inside of the project. So all of the sources, right?
Okay,
so
wow.
With this, you can actually use this SBOM to verify. If you have a copy of the Kubernetes SBOM, you can use this SBOM to verify that all files are.
So why the reason of making these two separate? Like, what's the rationale behind that?
So the idea, and I mean, sort of the prediction was that you would be needing to verify as a consumer. You would be needing to verify your binaries and your images more frequently than just going through the source. So both SBOMs are interlinked using the SPDX external references, but you can definitely so you can relate how one artifact was built from the dependencies on the other file.
Yeah.
So let me show you. So our tool has this outline feature, which lets you go into the documents to inspect them and see how they look like. So nice. You just pass it an SBOM and it'll show you things like this.
Oh, nice.
So you can see here that it relates everything that the SBOM contains. So you have the container images here. These are the layers of that image. And then because we put out, this is accounting for the images before they're pushed to the registry. So we don't have yet the final manifest here. But the layers should be, the information should be correct, right? And you can see here how this image is related to its layers, and then that same image is related to the Kubernetes 123 package, which is on the other document.
Exactly. That's the external reference that you mentioned before, right?
Right. And so these are all the images. Then down here, you have the files, which are the binaries of the distribution. And it lets you see that. And so
very nifty.
BOM, to generate an SBOM with BOM, you just point it to a directory, for example, BOM generate, and I will give it its own directory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to generate the SBOM for the tool itself, just to show you.
Okay. How meta.
Exactly. And then we embed the SPDX license inside of the Go binary, so you can just go through all of your Go source and give you all of the licensing information is included inside of the SBOM, and and this is basically a CLI built so that anybody can use those libraries that we built for the Kubernetes release process.
Nice. That's quite a lot of work that is then used in such a simple way that I love it. Okay. So ever since 123, each release, the major releases, right, comes out with 2 SBOMs. Is that correct?
Right.
Where are they? Yeah, go ahead.
That's what I was going to say. We have a special URL, which is called sbom.k8s.io. It doesn't have like an index, but if you go to the release notes, they should be linked from there, and so that's where we download them. So it's
okay.
K8s sbom.k8s.io, like that.
Okay, lovely. So so we've talked about the format of the SBOM file. This was what you showed was a tag value. There was a JSON too. I guess let's finalize with how you've become more involved with SBOM, because now you're as involved with Kubernetes as you are with SPDX. I mean, you probably spend more time with Kubernetes. I think it's a more, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a more complex and bigger project. But you're definitely very involved in the SPDX community. And one of the criticisms was formats, as you mentioned. I mean, not everyone likes tag value. There's many criticisms to, and most very valid criticisms to SPDX. One is usually that SPDX is kind of complex in itself to understand it, to get to that stage in which Stephen Augustus told you about bombs and you went finding yourself out, and then you found SPDX. And I'm guessing that you, despite you being an engineer, software engineer, and familiar with security, it took you your time to understand, in particular, SPDX, right? It's in essence, SPDX is a aim to define the software world. It's a taxonomy, it's a vocabulary, and that in itself, like any project like this, a vocabulary of the English language or an encyclopedia or any other effort that tries to map a huge world, it's by definition really complex. It has to be. The world is complex. So if you try to describe the world, it's going to be complex. Software is complex. It's quite actually difficult to communicate software because it's untangible. It's digital. It's binary, and it's not easy to understand from our physical sort of like mentality. So one of the things that SPDX is the new release, the 3.0 release that we put out, the project put out the release candidate of a month ago, a bit more, is to aim to be able to use SPDX, a complex project, in a simple way, right? So for that, profiles will be created, right? Which would be the ability of anyone wanting to use SPDX to use it to solve for its own use case, right? So if you're interested, if you approach SPDX from a security standpoint, or if you approach SPDX from a build standpoint, like you described it now for Kubernetes, if you approach SPDX from an AI data set licensing and sort of like security and supply chain security perspective, you will have a subset of SPDX for you to use in that use case, right? There's plenty of them. And you're particularly, please correct me if I'm wrong, describe in your own words what the effort behind profiles are, and describe in particular the profile you're most involved with, right? That would be my last question for you.
Yeah, so I guess coming from SPDX 2 to 3, the standard needed to evolve to capture more use cases that people around the SBOM world have been pointing out as needed. But there's like one problem with, I don't know if this is true for everything. I remember it being the same a little bit for XML back in the day. A big problem approaching SPDX as a format is that folks will usually go and look at a document first instead of understanding the notions.
The notions, exactly, yeah.
So once you understand that at the very top, SPDX is just a set of elements related to each other, and those elements used to be in the past just files and packages with very descriptive relationships between them, it becomes easy to understand. If you go down and start to look at the format and how it's structured, then you miss a lot. And I guess when faced with the need to capture more use cases into the format, what made the most sense was, well, if you don't need some of these new elements that are getting introduced into SPDX to capture, as you said, AI cases, security cases, build elements, then perhaps it makes the most sense not have them in the document. One of the early criticisms of SPDX was, well, I look at this document and everything is empty, like everything is no assertion, things like that. And this was just because it was a requirement to have them there. But if you could like get into the mindset that okay, this is there, but I don't need it. That's it. Why it says no assertion. Then it makes sense. SPDX 2.3 made a good improvement on simply not requiring those elements, so the tokens are a lot more compact and easier to read.
Mm-hmm.
So once you were at the point of SPDX 2.3 and you wanted to add more to the format, then it made sense to split everything into its own profile. So in a new SPDX document, what you'll see is that it has too bad I don't have SPDX 3 samples to show, but you will see that it has a profiles field, and that field will tell you just which elements are valid in that document. So there's the SBOM, the bill of materials, software bill of materials case, but you also now have these new profiles, build, AI, and security, which is the one I've been involved with. The security profile is mostly designed to capture vulnerability information. So people have this description of software and they wanted to have the vulnerability information in a document in the same format. So
That's a massive use case these days.
yeah. So SPDX 3 builds on that to have a vulnerability element, and you have advisories which tell you the severity. You have now VEX also built, which is vulnerability exploitability exchange, which lets you create relationships describing if a vulnerability actually impacts a piece of software or not. Um, and yeah, it introduces a whole new set of elements, whole new sets of vocabularies and relationships. But the good news about profiles is if you don't need all of that and you just want like a nice compact SBOM, simply don't include that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a kind of a UX upgrade, I guess, or UX approach, right? Because, as you said, I mean, the spec of 3.0 in a way is more complex. It's definitely bigger than the spec in 2.3, right? And the model the same. All the so for those unfamiliar, SPDX releases four things: the spec, the model, some low-level libraries, and then the license ID. Because back in the day, SPDX was only solving for, narrowly focused on the problem of licensing. That still solves very neatly. But as you said, the spirit behind SPDX has always been to cover as many use cases as possible, right? And this has been the case. But yes, as you say, the despite the spec covering more and more ground, and therefore maybe being a bit more complex, the usage of it, depending on your use case, is going to be way more easy to consume and to apply to the day-to-day life. Because yeah, some of these things are really time pressing. Like if you get an alert from the security profile of an SBOM that you just received, of a package that you just installed, you better know where that thing is and take action, because it's going to be critical. So yeah, the security profile, I can anticipate that it's one of the most anticipated ones for sure. We will soon release, by the way, a blog post. There's a talk that Adolfo and who did you give the talk on? Rose Judge,
Mm-hmm.
correct? At Vancouver, the last OSS Summit that you can find in this same channel. But we will publish a blog post, and you'll probably know more about it in OSS Summit Bilbao in September. So, did we miss anything? Because I think we've covered all the ground. Did you want to talk about anything in particular that we missed?
Yeah, I think one important thing to mention is, well, at least one aspect of SPDX3 that I'm very excited for is that it's linked data. So you can
Oh yeah.
actually have an SPDX document in JSON-LD, which lets you really neatly relate that information to other security documents out there. Not all formats are um, enabled for the JSON-LD use case, but once we start, because right now we're pushing out the new standard, right? And initially, it will be just what I call DOM parsers, which just go through the information and that's it.
Yeah.
But once we start seeing some JSON LD enabled SBOM parsers, they will let you really nicely relate the elements in one document to other document, but not only other SPDX documents, but to other formats. So I'm just going to go briefly over the Vex use case because it's the one I'm involved.
Before you move on, what is the difference between JSON and JSON LD?
So JSON LD is a representation in JSON of linked data.
Okay.
So linked data lets you name and locate data all over the internet. So it makes it really easy to say, okay, I have, for example, a document, and I may have the vulnerability information in that document, but perhaps I have it in another document, in another format, in another site. And using that linked data lets you point and say, okay, this software element has that vulnerability over there. And this is what we are trying to build in Vex, right? SPDX now joins as the 4th implementation of Vex, only the 2nd one to be complete. I'm also involved in another project called OpenVex, which is linked data as well. So in theory, we can link at the linked data level elements from an SPDX SBOM to those in the OpenVex document without needing to go out and look out things like identifiers, like is this Perl match? Does this Perl match the other one? Things like that. Just link it at the document level.
Yeah.
Really
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah. Well, hopefully that comes soon and people start gradually using that because it sounds very, very interesting and nifty. It's a nifty solution. What else? Anything else that you think it's worth mentioning about 3.0, about Vex, or anything that or maybe the Kubernetes release? Any changes coming there in 128?
So no, right now we're at a period of stability and trying to. We have been dealing with some issues with the infrastructure, and so that's where we're trying to put our efforts right now.
Yeah, the good thing about Kubernetes is that it's become, I mean, I'm going to say boring, but I don't mean it in a good way, right? It's one of the things about maturity of a project that it becomes kind of stable and boring. It's a good thing. There's always issues and there's always scalability and sort of like bugs and many other things. But yeah, they come in a very natural way, I guess. So I would like to thank you for such an amazing project. You're part of it, of course, and a really critical part. And this description of how SPDX got to be the communication standard for the SBOMs in Kubernetes has been great. Thanks for joining us. Everyone here in the stream know that we will repeat this sometime probably next week or in 2 weeks' time in Spanish because we both speak Spanish. And I think it's good that we spread the word about SPDX and Kubernetes in other languages. And that's all. The recording will be uploaded to the YouTube channel. And as I said, Adolfo most likely will have a blog post in the SPDX.dev/blog, the blog of SPDX website, and expect news from the SPDX release soon and the security profile in which him and Rose are really involved. Thank you so much, Adolfo. Have a brilliant rest of the day and a fantastic weekend.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jordi, and see everyone at the upcoming SPDX3 mini summit in Bilbao.
Correct. We've got a mini summit coming in September. It's been announced. We still are missing the agenda. That's why I didn't want to say anything. But yes, we should build some hype up. Yeah, no, you're right. It will be in a Monday, the Monday of that week. I think it's the 17th. I can't remember. Mid-September, and it will be in the afternoon. And most likely, we might have some benchmarking and tooling workshop before that. But yes, please join us in the mini summit if you're in Bilbao. Take care, everyone.